Alright, this reading is for Tuesday, April 11th, 1989 at 8:27 a.m. in Bakersfield, California. And this person, you even included coordinates for your birth, which I thought was really cool. I've never had those before. I don't even know how you find those. But for this chart, you do have Sun in Aries, Moon in Cancer with Taurus rising, and the ascendant is actually at the very last degree of Taurus, the very last part of Taurus, but it's definitely in Taurus still. And first, I'm just going to give you some astrological jargon, but then I'll kind of translate it for you. So, the first thing that I couldn't help but notice is that you have Sun exalted and Moon in domicile. So, this means that the Sun and the Moon were in very strong placements when you were born, but they are clashing. So, you're born during a first quarter moon, which means that the moon is making almost an exact 90-degree angle with the sun. It's not exact, but Cancer and Aries do square each other, so the sun and the moon are squaring by sign. And I've just noticed through transits, through experiencing it myself, that this aspect with the first quarter moon in Cancer, the Cancer first quarter moon, is one of the most volatile days of the year, depending on the other aspects throughout the year. But this is extremely volatile, and the reason is because both the sun and the moon, and they both are so strong, but they're at odds with each other. They're making this 90-degree angle. It's a very harsh aspect. It's very much clashing because Aries and Cancer are so different from one another. Um, so a different way of putting it would be, the sun, which was our ego, it's how we express ourselves. That is very strong for you. So that would make you a very expressive person. It'd make you generally very confident. But then the moon, which represents the more private part of our personality, the more feminine aspect of ourselves, it's our emotional core. That is very strong as well, but in a much different way. And so it's almost like you have this clashing between these two different parts of your personality. You have fire very strong in your chart, being an Aries sun, but you also have water very strong, being being a Cancer moon. And fire and water are not compatible elements. You have one part of your personality that is very dominant, very confident, very expressive. It wants to start things. It wants to be impulsive and spontaneous. But you have this other part of your personality that is very reflective, and it likes to be more quiet and more sensitive and more nurturing. It's very emotional, very sensitive. So part of your personality is just wanting to rush out into the world and just experience, anything and everything, and just, it's so courageous. But the other part is kind of like a homebody, just wants to stay at home. So you have a very dynamic personality. This is a lot to handle for a person. It also implies that your parents were very different from one another. Your parents were both probably very strong-willed, but they didn't have a lot in common, and they both expected different things from you, so you weren't really sure exactly what was expected from you as a child, which is very confusing, but it leads us to a dynamic personality. Um, Another way we could look at this is kind of looking at the pros and the cons. Let's start with the cons first. So the cons is that this will make you feel crazy at times. This is a setup for a very, you will feel out of control many times throughout your life, especially emotionally, just because you have so much contrast within your personality that it's hard to manifest in one person. Um, it's just, I don't know how else I could say it. It's just difficult to know what to even do. It's like you want to go in different directions at the same time. You're impulsive, yet you're also indecisive. It's like you just it's almost like you want to implode sometimes. Like you just don't even know what to do. So that can be very difficult, especially at a young age. I would say, very difficult. Um, I would say the pro side of this, the positive side, is that this can lead to immense wisdom and power once you kind of get used to it. So, especially later in life, once you have matured and sort of integrated this contrast within yourself, you would be very wise, and you would have many different experiences throughout your life. Like you probably this chart to me strikes me as someone who has a lot of crazy stories, or a very rich life story, if you will. So, although you might feel super out of control at a young age, as you get older, you'd be very wise, very mature. Having all that contrast within your personality allows you to see many different sides to every story, or, you can understand people from all walks of life type of thing. You know, Cancer Moon is very wise, and Aries Sun is very courageous. So, um, you know, I think it would take time, but you are set up to be a very wise, very insightful person. I'm sure I'll think of more to say about that. I mean, just that dynamic alone, there's a lot to say. This dynamic would also make you very likable, very charismatic. Having Sun exalted and Moon in domicile, it means that you're easily understood. So people just kind of naturally like you and they understand you. Or even if they don't fully understand you, they at least feel like they do. You feel familiar to people. Um, and with this Taurus rising, that adds this kind of layer of groundedness. You probably seem more grounded than you actually are. People sense this like calm energy with you, even though, like I said, you still have all this emotional dynamism and contrast within you that can be overwhelming at times. But the impression that you give off to people is very different, you know, marked by the Taurus rising. The impression that you give off is you seem very centered, very grounded to other people. People um, might not always see you as being out of control. They see you as being reliable and consistent, which is kind of funny. But yeah, you do have that side to your personality as well. Um, but yeah, having these exalted and domicile luminaries, it makes you likable. People would see you as being attractive and understandable. And again, I just want to emphasize it doesn't necessarily mean that people actually truly understand you because you do have a lot of dynamism. I think you are kind of hard to understand at first because you have so many different sides to your personality. But people would at least have the illusion or the feeling that, you know, you're understandable, you're likable, etc. Okay, but you also have Mercury and Venus in Aries. Okay, let's just focus on like your general personality for a little bit here because there's a lot to dissect here. You have Mercury and Venus in Aries, Mars in Gemini, Jupiter in Gemini. Mars in Gemini makes someone who's pretty like sharp-witted, and you can um, like you can have really good like comebacks or you know really smart like quips. Like you're fast thinking and you're quick with your words. So you can like for instance, if you wanted to really chew somebody out, you could really find like the perfect thing to say. You'd be really naturally good at that, at kind of um, you know kind of acting on your toes. I don't know if I'm using that word, that phrase right, but yeah, you could kind of like come up with those comebacks really quickly, or come up with those like quick jokes and the funny punchlines really quickly. You'd be naturally good at that. And this, you have multiple Aries placements as well, so you would be naturally good at you know being instinctive or reacting to things very quickly, having those like sharp reflexes. Aries placements kind of naturally are good at those types of things. With Aries Mercury, I think your thinking can be sometimes kind of intense, and you're very confident in your thinking, especially with your Taurus rising and your Cancer moon as well. I think you would be a little bit stubborn. You do have that multifaceted nature that I talked about earlier, where you would see multiple sides to everything, so you would naturally be really good at understanding different perspectives to things. But at the same time, you're stubborn, if that makes sense, and that can almost make you more stubborn because when you come to a conclusion, you've already looked at like many different ways of looking at something. So when you come to a conclusion, you're very much fixed on that conclusion. Um, you know, because you're so multifaceted. But I would say that you'd be kind of hard to convince because you do seem pretty like strong-willed. Like you you seem like if you want, you seem like someone who very much knows what you want, and if once your mind is made up, you're set on that. You're you know, and it's kind of hard to articulate because you're open-minded in the sense of being open to all those different perspectives, but at the same time you're very focused. You're very you know, you do have that kind of stubborn streak. Let's talk about Venus, and then we can get more into like relationship stuff a little bit here. So you do have Venus in detriment in Aries, and it's conjunct the Sun. So Venus conjunct the Sun would also make you attractive to other people. You might be physically attractive, or even just your personality is like easy for people to get along with. So it would kind of make you easygoing, especially for an Aries person. It would make you someone who is just kind of easy to relate to, easy to talk to. So you're attractive, maybe not only physically, not trying to boost you up here, but just reading, you know, Venus conjunct the Sun, it would infuse the attributes of Venus into your ego and your outward personality. So it would make you kind of polite, gracious, and easygoing, easy to talk to and to relate to. And this is really strengthened by having Taurus rising. It makes Venus your chart ruler, and so Venus in Aries, I think you'd be very, very approachable and easy to talk to. Like, be easy for people to start conversations with you. They'd feel very comfortable with you, and you'd be very likable. However, let's talk about some more challenging things here. So Venus is in detriment though in Aries, so it does have a more challenging time, and this would especially come up with your relationships. So, meaning like your romantic relationships. You would kind of have some trouble with romantic relationships and desires because it would be hard for you to relax in relationships because you feel like it's a game. You feel like you have to win, like it's a competition. Venus in Aries is very out of place. Venus likes to kind of just relax and naturally draw things to it, but this is not how you operate. When you want something, you want to go out and grab it. You want to get it. This is kind of energy of like a hunter or a warrior, something of that nature. So that can be difficult for relationships because you get bored very easily. Like you are attracted to someone, and don't get me wrong, I think you can be a very loyal person. You still have the Cancer moon, which is very committed, very monogamous, and likes that security of just being with one person that they can be close to. But at the same time, you need someone multifaceted like yourself because you do get bored easily. You like new things. Everyone does, so I'll be more specific. But especially in relationships, you're almost attracted to someone that seems kind of unapproachable or inaccessible. Like you like the feeling of the chase or the hunt with someone. um, so, and this can be hard sometimes. Some people who have Venus in Aries, they get stuck just having, um, like for instance, they'll really find someone attractive, but then once they actually get close to them and that feeling of the chase or the hunt is over, then they get bored and then now they're attracted to someone else. So you might have kind of issues with that, especially at a younger age, when we're not as mature or aware of ourselves. This is one possible tendency that is sort of relevant to Venus and Aries. Let's see here. But yeah, it's not saying that you're incapable of a relationship by any means. I would just say you need someone really multifaceted and, like yourself, someone really interesting that has different sides to their personality because that will keep things new for you, new and exciting. You definitely don't want that feeling of like complacency. You want things to continue to be new and exciting with someone or with anything that you desire, but especially with a romantic relationship. Okay, and then you have Mars and Gemini. So Gemini is also a sign that gets bored very easily, and it also craves multi-dimensional or multifaceted people or pastimes. So, so far I'm just talking about Venus and Mars, and I'll also talk about your descendant, which is very relevant as well. But yeah, for a relationship or for anything that you desire something really new and something exciting. So you would want someone or something. You'd want someone completely new, like not like anybody else. Someone really, someone that gives you that feeling of excitement and of the chase. But for a long-term situation, you need that to be sustained. The feeling of excitement and newness. That would be really important for you. The descendant also has a lot to do with relationships, and people overlook it. But especially with long-term compatibility, I would look at the descendant. Your descendant is in Scorpio, and your ascendant is in Taurus. So you're naturally a very self-sufficient person, which is very interesting to me because you're so like emotionally complex and multifaceted, and feel so out of control, especially at an early age. But with all that being said, you're still very self-sufficient. You don't really naturally rely on others for things. You would attract a partner though who is a little bit more codependent on you. Someone very interesting and maybe mysterious. Definitely someone very complex. That's a theme that I keep noticing. So you want someone with like different sides to their personality. Someone who's kind of like a puzzle. Someone very interesting to kind of figure out here. Let's see what else here. And having descendant in Scorpio also strengthens that theme that I noticed, where you want it to continue to be interesting. So you don't want things to feel complacent in your relationships. You want that feeling of it being kind of multifaceted and complex and interesting. You're continuing to learn things with your partner and continuing to have new experiences. I think that's really, really important. Um, Probably for all of us to some extent, but especially for you in your compatibility in your long-term relationships. I think I covered that. Okay. Also, you're being having descendant in Scorpio, you'd be attracted to water signs, and this works pretty well for you as well because you do have Moon in Cancer, so you're kind of watery, and water in astrology rules emotion, so it makes water signs are generally the most emotional. They're the most intuitive. They're very creative. So you'd be attracted to someone who very emotionally deep, very maybe someone a little bit sensitive, perhaps maybe someone with Scorpio in their astrology or Cancer, maybe Pisces also would work. Let's see here. I think Scorpio would be a really good fit though, and I would have to see the other person's whole chart if I was really determining compatibility for you. But just generally speaking, Scorpio would be an interesting sign for you just because it is so multifaceted and complex. So I think it would really give you a lot to chew on, and Scorpio also likes to keep things exciting and wants that complexity as well. So I think you'd be really compatible with that sign. One other major theme that I noticed or aspect in your chart, you have Moon in Cancer at 5 degrees, 5 degrees Cancer. It's exactly opposite Uranus at 5 degrees Capricorn, and it's also almost exactly opposite Neptune and Saturn that are about halfway through Capricorn. And so when you have an inner planet, like the moon's technically not a planet, but when you have the moon here and it's opposing these outer planets, this to me seems very volatile and very like pressurized, and it can lead to violent accidents when triggered. And I think this would especially apply at a young age. It could apply to your mother. I hate to say these kind of more dark things, but I do see that potential that there would be some kind of accident, maybe at a young age, maybe involving your mother, or maybe just with yourself at a young age. Hopefully not. Hopefully I'm wrong, but I don't know. It would also just make your upbringing feel very pressurized, and you would actually continue this to have this feeling throughout probably your whole life that emotionally you almost feel like people are against you, or it could make you feel kind of like paranoid, or you feel like this pressure from the outside world that how do I put it? I guess just like that people are against you or that the world is against you, and it could make you feel like paranoid, kind of. Um, and like I said, it could lead to violent accidents. Um, Moon's also opposite Saturn. I think your father was very present in your life as a child. I think both of your parents were actually really. The sun and the moon are so strong, and Saturn, which also kind of has to do with the father, is in Capricorn and it's direct. So I really think both of your parents were instrumental in your upbringing, that they were both, very present in your life. Let's talk about your childhood more. So, and I promise it won't be as dark, but IC is in Leo. So this means that you were very confident and outgoing as a child. You're very stubborn and very warm. You probably didn't want to be told what to do. Like you're a little bit rebellious, and you're very precocious. Like you knew what you wanted, and were very set on that. And you may have felt like your emotions were sort of like on display as a child. Like there are always like people watching, or you were like in public a lot, or maybe at events or something of that nature. And so, the downside is that it may have made you feel very exposed as a child. But the positive side is that you learned to handle attention very well at an early age. Um, so throughout your life you can still handle attention very well and be the center of attention. Um, okay, and then you have your midheaven in Aquarius. Let me just think here. Actually, before I move on to that, you do have your part of fortune very near your IC, so this points to some kind of this large fortune having to do with your early upbringing. It could also have to do with like your home, so it'd point to you maybe living in a like really nice home, especially with IC and Leo as well. I think your home would be very important to you. You'd want a really maybe a big home or a fancy home or just something um, I don't know, something really special, and especially with Cancer Moon, your home would be very important to you, more so than relative to other people. Your home would be more important to you than a home would be to the typical person, if that makes sense. Okay, let's talk about your career more so. So your midheaven is in Aquarius. This points, this to me indicates you would maybe lead a group of some sort, group of people. You could work with something technological, something involving the internet. Aquarius does rule the internet and online activities. It's very global. Um, some kind of career that involves you having to be sort of detached and holistic in your thinking and looking at complex systems, looking at things that affect groups of people, or maybe even large aspects of society. So this is sort of an abstract midheaven to have, an abstract career to have, something involving technology or groups of people, the internet, something of that nature. And this is very different than, I mean, you have such an emotionally rich personality, I feel like. So this would be a very different side of you in your career, because you would show a much more detached part of your personality in your career. And this would apply to all your online interactions as well. So online or in public or at work, you would seem very cool, calm, and collected, very detached. Um, it's your reputation and how you appear in these circumstances would be very different than how your friends or family might know you. I think they would know you to be more sensitive, more emotionally vibrant, sensitive, not this kind of a little bit colder and more detached side that you display maybe in public or at work or online. You have South Node at 3 degrees Virgo. This usually indicates a child who read a lot. So you may have read a lot as a child, learned a lot. You're very intellectual or academic, very curious. Um, and it points to someone who's very responsible. So even though you can feel so emotionally out of control, you're still there to do the mundane parts of life. So you're good with taking out the trash, going to work, making sure you have money, making sure you're organized. You're naturally really good at all that type of stuff. All this more mundane, um, things of that nature, being organized and responsible and all that. What's more difficult for you is letting go of that and just surrendering and kind of, getting, like, it'd be really good for you to get more into, like, spirituality. And you may have done this by now. Looks like you're in your 30s. Yes. So you may have made progress on this by now, that you may have become better at, just releasing things or letting things go, or learning about the more abstract concepts of life. I think you'd be very curious, very, like looking at your other placements, you'd be very oriented toward understanding very abstract concepts. And so I think that may have helped to lead you to focus more on this kind of like spiritual or otherworldly aspect of life. Hopefully that makes sense. Because if you were to stay in that responsible, organized mode, it would be detrimental to you. So it is good to have. It's good that you're good at that type of stuff. It's good that you're responsible and can be self-sufficient and all that. That's definitely very good. It's something that a lot of people don't have. But like for instance, for your personality, like watching the news too much, or just focusing on the day to day, it can be detrimental for you, because even though you're good at that type of stuff, and those things are good to have, focusing on that like mundane reality, it can almost be like an addiction for you, or it can it can kind of consume you. So it's really beneficial for you to learn about these more abstract or spiritual parts of life, and also just kind of to relax, I guess. I think it could be hard for you to relax. You have so much energy, and you have so much dynamism and so much activity. Which again, these things are good, but it's all about moderation. So, um, yeah, I think it can be hard for you to just relax and like trust the process, you know. And again, you may have made progress in this, but this would be especially hard at a young age for you. Okay, what else? What else? I've said most of what I want to say. I think I've covered a lot. I covered relationships, covered your, your main personality. There's also this push and pull between like yin and yang in your chart, so it's almost like part of you is like, I don't want to say aggressive, but it's like part of you wants to like get out there and like make things happen, and you want to, you know what you want to go out there and grab it. But there's this other part of you that's wants to just hold back and be slower. I think that can be very confusing, but again, it's something that takes time to learn that balance. I think balance could be really hard for you. Um, let's see here. This was a really brief reading. I was talking kind of fast, I think, but I covered most of what I wanted to say. So if you do have any questions or if you'd like any additional information, please email me, or you can comment on this video, which I'll post here. Um, yeah, I'd be happy to answer any other questions you have, or to look at anything specific that you're looking for. But that's the main gist of what I see with your personality and your natal chart here. So definitely thank you for the request. You have a very interesting, very dynamic chart for sure. Oh wait, let me see. Nope. Okay, I thought I noticed that you were lacking like air planets, but really no, you have a pretty well-rounded balance of the elements here actually. So yeah, let me know if you have anything else you'd like to talk about with me. But at any rate, thanks for watching. And if anyone else would like a reading, you can always email me at manic.mercurian@gmail.com. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.